good evening and welcome to the first Wednesday night update of 2022. It's a brand new year. It's dark outside, it's cold outside. The roads were pretty horrendous during the day as the snow was falling. And, it was reminded me there used to be a show on KTIS, a late night radio show. I think it came on about 11 o'clock. It was called Night Sounds. And the host would always start with, "Hello, good evening, and welcome to Night Sounds on KTIS." It's kind of how it feels tonight. Kind of one of those, almost feels like it's late night already, even though it's only 6 o'clock. But we are glad to have you with us this evening. Let's take a look and see who we have here so far. And Dale, it looks like you were the first one here tonight. Congratulations on being the first one online and commenting here. Kathy, a very good evening to Rich and to you. Len, good to see you with us tonight. And Meg, a very good evening and welcome to you also. We'll see if anybody else joins us here live or if they're all going to wait and watch it later. Typically, I think we end up having anywhere from 5 to 10 folks coming in live usually here on a Wednesday night right at 6 o'clock. And over the course of the week, usually I think somewhere between 30 and 40 folks tune in to see what we've been up to. Just a couple of announcements for this evening. Session did vote at the December session meeting to keep our mask mandate in place for the building. It's kind of bittersweet. It's kind of hard, right? I mean, we're all struggling with the fact that this COVID piece is continuing and Omicron is continuing to affect more and more folks. It seems to be just so contagious and so many people getting it right now. So we are maintaining a mask mandate here at the church through the first quarter. So through the end of March right now is the plan. Sunday school will be up and running again for the kids and the youth this coming Sunday. So if you have kids, we hope and encourage you to get them there for Sunday school. We also have a new member informational meeting for anyone interested in learning more about who we are as a church. And what it means to be a member of the congregation. And that's going to be on Sunday, January 23rd. It's going to be following worship, and we'll just meet in the Shalom Room downstairs. Well, yeah, but if you're here, you'll already be downstairs. It's downstairs from where it's downstairs from where I am now. All right, that's where it is. It's downstairs. Also, some of the kids this Sunday are going to be putting together care kits for the homeless. So if you want to grab one of those care kits and carry it around in your car, those will be available by the time worship starts on Sunday. So you can grab one of those, and if you see somebody on a street corner that you think might be able to use, I think there's going to be some hats and socks and some personal care products in there. You grab one of those and pass those out to folks as well. Hey, Shara, good evening to you and welcome as well. Glad to have you joining us from home tonight. We don't have Wednesday night programs running at all tonight, but our youth programming will begin again next week. In terms of prayer requests, things we'd like for you guys to continue to pray for as a church, please pray for Yvonne Schultz and her family. We've been praying for her son-in-law, Al Flory. Al had been battling pancreatic cancer, had made the decision to stop chemotherapy because it was no longer being effective for him, and he has passed. And so obviously the family is in mourning and could very much use prayers for comfort and peace at this time. Steve Knapp has an update on the lumbar puncture procedure that he had. The test did confirm his previous diagnosis of Alzheimer's. However, the doctors do believe he is a good candidate for a treatment that may slow down the progress of his symptoms. So let's pray for Steve and Barb as they are in the process of trying to discern what the best way to move forward with that is as well. Eric Esterly's mom is requesting continued prayers for her day-to-day pain. She's found good doctors. They're helping her, but she's still struggling. And she's really just, one of her prayer requests is that she would have a sense of peace as well. And obviously, we want to keep praying for Cameroon. We do have a couple of our members in the Enfer family heading back home to Cameroon next week. So our prayers for them as a family as they make their way back there, as there is still some continued violence in the small villages and within the English-speaking part of the country. Not really a whole lot of updates on the folks that have been dealing with cancer in our community, at least the ones that we're aware of. David Mork, Bill Fairman, Bill Clearly, and Andrea Esterly's mom. But we definitely want to keep them in our continued prayers as well. Time for a little thought for the week, right? Wouldn't be a Wednesday night without a thought for the week now, would it? This week, the thought is from the author Henry Miller. And Henry Miller says, imagination is the voice of daring. If there is anything godlike about God, it is that he dared to imagine everything. Imagination is the voice of daring. If there's anything godlike about God, it is that he dared to imagine everything. And I love that. I love that idea. Every year as I go into the new year, I am not a big fan of making resolutions. If you read my newsletter article, you'll see how I talked about how quickly we tend to break our resolutions. And I have always been one to, when I did make them, I was always very quick to break them as well. So what I've done for the last number of years is I've entered the new year rather with a thought, a word or two that I want to kind of keep to the forefront of my life in the coming year. For 2021, as we were had almost an entire year when we were dealing with COVID and we weren't sure when we would get back to the church again, I had two words going into 2021. One was simplicity, and the other was creativity. And I think by simplifying my life last year, it really helped me survive in many ways the year that was 2021. But now as we step into this new year and 2022, I also have two words that I'm really trying to focus on this year a little more. And the first word is intentional. I really do want to be more intentional in really everything I do for the next 12 months. But the other word is imagination. I want to be able to utilize my imagination more. Imagination is such a critical part of us as humans. We really can't function without it. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, I'm not an imaginative person. I would just say that's absolute nonsense. Everybody is imaginative in some way, shape, or form. If you've ever played the game of golf, every time before you hit the ball, you have to picture in your mind, you have to imagine what that shot is going to look like, what the trajectory of the ball is, how it's going to move in the air, what the wind's going to do to it. And you have to have that creative sense of wanting to make something happen that hasn't yet happened. And that's what imagination is. It's dreaming about things that haven't yet taken place. Somebody once said that if aliens ever landed on Earth, they might take a look at our science and go, nah, not impressed by your science. They might take a look at our technology, the technology that we think is really advanced, right? The technology that allows me to be online live with you now here. And they might be like, nah, technology that allows you to do that? Nah, technology even that allows you to get to the moon? Gosh, we've come from another planet. Nah, we're not impressed with that. What would an alien look at in terms of trying to understand who we are as humans? I think they would try to seek and understand why it is we sing songs, why it is we write poetry, why it is that we create art. How is it that we live in community with one another? How is it that we as humanity love one another? I think those are the kinds of things that really define who we are as human beings. But to get there requires us to exercise our imagination. I think probably the greatest, or certainly one of the greatest stories in the Bible that demonstrates human imagination is in the creation narrative. And we can take it as literal or as fictional, as a fabricated poem or whatever, but the purpose is the same. That moment where God is in the garden with Adam and brings all the animals before him and says to him, what would you call each of these animals? And Adam is forced to exercise creative imagination to name the animals. Really mirroring God's creative imagination and bringing creation into order in the first place. Right? Going back to Henry Miller's quotation there, right? Imagination is the voice of daring. If there's anything godlike about God, it is that he dared to imagine everything. God even dared to imagine, once humanity fell away from God, what it would take and the journey and the process for redemption. A journey that would take a man in the form of Abraham and call him out of the land he was living in to show him a new land, but that land wouldn't be his yet, and the people that would come from him would go into slavery in Egypt for some 400 years before they would come out of there, and eventually Joshua would lead them into the promised land, and then they would rebel against God, and they would go into exile, and they'd come back to the promised land, and eventually out of that people the Messiah would come. But God imagined the Messiah coming through those people. Folks, you are imaginative. If we want to see the world become a better place, and tomorrow is January 6th. It's the day in which a year ago there was an insurrection at our nation's capital. If we want to imagine a better world than that, a world that is not divided into blue and red, a world that is not Republican or Democrat, a world in which God's kingdom comes to bear, we have to be able to imagine that world first. We have to see in our minds what it means to be a people of love, what it means to be a people of hope, what it means to be a peacemaker. We have to imagine that first, because only once it enters into our imagination can we begin to apply it. So folks, develop a creative imagination. Don't be polarized by the ways of this world, but allow God's Spirit to stir up something new within you that you can then bring to reality in this life. Guess that's all I got for you this week. Folks, have a fantastic rest of the night. Doesn't look like anybody else signed in to comment anyway. So I do hope you have a great rest of the evening. And I look forward to either seeing you in person or having you join us online again on Sunday morning. Until then, God bless you, and may God's Spirit be with you.